Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more waterfowl patterning, and today we've got an old school combination with a vintage oriented shell as well. And I'm definitely curious to see how it performs because I have a feeling that this combo is going to give us some very nice patterns with these shells. But as for the shotgun we've got out here today, I brought out this guy, which was my uncle's old 1952 Browning A-5. This one's a 12 gauge. It's got a 28-inch barrel on it with a fixed full choke. This full choke on this particular barrel comes out right at a 685 constriction, so maybe a touch on the tighter side for a full choke, but that's how some of these old guns were, is a little bit tight. Definitely a very nice old school setup that we've tested a few times on the channel now with some very interesting results, but we have not done any sort of waterfowl patterning with it. And my uncle was not a waterfowl hunter. This was his deer gun and or deal with varmints and predators and stuff like that around the property type of gun with the occasional turkey, so no waterfowl that I know of anyway. But we've got an interesting old school loading to run through it, so I'm definitely curious to see how it does. But as for the shells we've got to run today, I brought out some of these, the Salt Creek Vintage Waterfowl shells. They are a 12 gauge, 2.5 inch, 1 1/8 ounce load of bismuth shot. Now I've got 4s and 5s in here, and we're gonna run both of them. These are a vintage low pressure load in a 2.5 inch shell. This A-5 definitely does not need low pressure shells like this, but it is an old school setup. We've got an old school shell, and I am curious to see if it will actually cycle these. I've had it cycling 1 ounce loads of 8s, so in theory it probably should run these as well, but we're gonna find out. But as for today's test, since I've got both 4-shot and 5-shot in that box, I figured we might as well put the two of them side by side and see which one performs better from this A-5. So we're gonna run it the same as we always do. I've got 2 duck targets set up at 40 yards and the chronograph so we can get our velocity. So let's get you guys a view of those 2 targets. We'll take a shot with each shot size, and then we'll check out our results and see how they actually performed. I've got some decent hopes that they're gonna pattern very nicely through this setup, but let's take our shots and see how it actually does. All right, so let's take a quick peek at our velocities before we go look at our target. The boss claim for these is 1300, and we definitely saw that. We had 1377 and 1372. So very consistent velocities, and that's more than enough for a bismuth 4 or 5 for a duck or something out to 40 yards. And for those wondering, yes, those low pressure 2.5 inch shells did indeed cycle in that A-5 just fine. They were very nice in the recoil department in that shotgun. So I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed. That thing ran them like it was nothing. But how did it actually pattern down there at 40? Let's go check it out and see. All right, so now we're down here at our 40-yard targets, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing. We'll start over here on the right with our number 4 shot out of those vintage waterfowl shells. And yeah, that is absolutely a dead duck all day long. That is a ton of pellets right on that paper there. Got a number of them through the body. There's nowhere he can move to and get away from you. So for a core on the number 4 shot, that's a great looking pattern. Overall, I think it is a touch on the splotchy side outside of that central core area. I think the overall pattern was pretty centered up, but you can see we have a little bit of a void right up here above the duck target, and this bottom right area of the pattern is a little bit on the thin side. So not perfect necessarily, but hey, this is a 70-year-old setup with a vintage low pressure load. That is a duck killer all day long, hands down, no doubt about it. I wouldn't hesitate to use that combination one bit, because out to 40 yards, you're going to be putting the hammer down on them, that's for sure. So for the 4 shot, that's a very solid pattern, but not quite perfect. However, I think the number 5s were the ticket with this old Browning, because this is what we got with the number 5 shot. Beautifully even pattern. There's like no voids or anything on that duck target. Absolutely covered with a nice even spread of pellets. He can't fly forward or back, up and down, anywhere on there and get away from you. You really don't have many of those little bit thinner areas like we did with the 4s. It's just a very nice even coverage. The only area that I might be a little bit picky about is the top right corner of that duck target right there above that barcode. It might have have a little bit of a bigger void there, but for the rest of the pattern, that is nothing major. And really, we don't have much for flyers either. Maybe a few down there at the very bottom, but I'm really not going to hold it against that kind of a pattern. That right there would make for a fantastic do-all load. You could hunt waterfowl with it. You could hunt upland stuff with it in an area or state that requires you to use a non-toxic load. You could even hunt turkeys with that load. It might not be as tight as a dedicated turkey shell when it comes to patterns, but if you're shooting turkeys at 30 yards and even out to 40, that's still going to drop one all day long. So out of these two, I'm taking the number 5s personally. That's just a very nice pattern overall. I really don't have much to complain about there, that's for sure. Now I will back up here and throw up 2 side-by-side pictures so you guys can see both of these patterns up close. Because yeah, both are very solid considering what the shell and the shotgun actually is. However, that number 5 is probably the clear winner for today. I wouldn't hesitate to hunt with either one of them, but I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of those 5s. And like I mentioned earlier, my uncle was not a waterfowl guy, but if he was, or if I ever maybe at some point want to take this shotgun out for waterfowl hunting, I definitely would not mind using some of those vintage 5s all day long over running a lot of steel loads through that gun. So I'm really liking the results I'm seeing. Those are some very nice patterns, but I'd call that 5-shot a pretty killer pattern overall. And here are the 2 wads from those shells. The number 4 shot is over here on the left. The number 5 shot is over here on the right. They really have no difference to them at all. Just a little bit of coloration. And this little bit darker color on the number 4 shot could very well be just a little bit of a dirty bore getting cleaned out on the first shot or something like that. Overall, no damage, nothing noticeable at all. No concerns from me. Everything looks very much how I would expect it to here. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about those results right there? I'm definitely pretty impressed, especially with this number 5 shot pattern over here. I expected to see a good result from these shells. We've tested them through several old school setups before, all with some very solid looking patterns, but that one right over here might be the best combination we've gotten from these shells so far. That's probably about as perfect as you can ask for. It's a 70-year-old shotgun, and that would take out any duck just as good as any modern load would out to 40 yards all day long. You're gonna be hammering them. So you really just can't argue with that kind of performance right there. So once again, it seems like at least the older A-5s are some fantastic shotguns. Even with an old fixed choke barrel and stuff, they throw some pretty nice patterns with everything we've put through it so far. And although this one was my uncle's that he gave to me after he passed away, it's not going to become a test mule on the channel, that's for sure. We're not going to have it out here all the time, but I'm definitely curious to see what it does with several different types of loadings, waterfowl, turkey, buckshot, all that. We've done several tests with it so far with some nice results. And for waterfowl, I'm liking what I'm seeing here. I doubt that I would ever take it out on a waterfowl hunt, but if I did, I would not hesitate to use one of these loads, that's for sure. But leave all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these Salt Creek vintage waterfowl shells? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Is this a pattern or a combination that you would actually hunt with? And if so, which one would you take, the 4s or the 5s? And like I just mentioned, I'm not going to bring this shotgun out here all the time and make it a big test mule for us, but let me know if there's something else you guys might want to see through it, and we'll see about bringing it out here and trying it, because it could still be a pretty interesting test. So leave all your thoughts down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.